For our final fireside of HEDNA Los Angeles 2019, please welcome Adam Harris, CEO of Cloudbeds, and Sam Shank, CEO and founder of Hotel Tonight.
Hello, hello. You guys ready to go home? Leave this wonderful LA weather. Well, you got a few minutes with us first. I am so excited to get to spend a few minutes with Sam Shank, CEO and founder of Hotel Tonight. I'm sure everyone in this room is well aware of what Hotel Tonight brings to this incredible industry. But let's start learning a little bit of you first. What's your, give us a little background. Take us all the way back to Travel Post, Dealbase, and what sparked that entrepreneurial spirit.
It went back to LA. So I wanted to be, in college, I wanted to be a movie director, and negotiated and networked my way into working on the movie Scream with Wes Craven. The offices were right down on Melrose. And 9 months later, I realized that Hollywood's really screwed up, and I didn't want any part of it. So moved up to San Francisco and started working at companies and startups, and realized that starting a company was very much the same thing as directing a movie. You got a team, you got a common goal, you're releasing a product, it's direct to consumer. I'm like, hey, this sounds really fun. This is actually gonna scratch the itch that I've had to do something creative, but do it in a category that doesn't have all the bullshit that goes around with Hollywood.
Okay.
And I also thought I'd be, I don't know, I'm a little more nerdy, maybe, so I thought I'd be more successful. So jumping forward, I started my first company about 15 years ago now, called Travel Post. It was a hotel review site, and then that led to starting, and that was very moderately, with a very capital V, successful, just sort of landed the plane on that one. And then another company that is still around, but also sort of a modest success, called Dealbase. But learned a lot about the travel industry, and by doing those, then saw the opportunity for Hotel Tonight.
So you talked about the sort of production value of starting a company, running a company, sort of the orchestration, everything. What's your favorite part of being a leader of roughly 300 people in a travel industry that's dynamic, millions of downloads? Lessons learned, favorite parts of it?
Oh, we can go over all of those. I think that, so in terms of happiest things, right? So why I started doing this, and why I had was so energized around the idea for Hotel Tonight, was less so it was a travel company, because every time I start a travel company, I say I'm never going to start another travel company. I love the industry. It's a very hard industry to go from 0 to 1 to actually get initial traction in, which is why I say that. But in this case, it was actually a chance to build a mobile commerce play. This was 8.5 years ago, and I was like, wow, mobile is going to change everything. This is a chance to do something different from the ground up, and that's what got me energized. And then I thought that it was actually going to be bringing a product to the market that people would love, and that was my goal, was to build a product that people loved to love, and build something that had the viral characteristics of word of mouth that was going to get the word out, versus my first business was SEO. That's a disaster. Second business turned out to be SEM arbitrage. That's also a disaster. So I was like, I want to control my own destiny and build a business the hard way, which is going back to how businesses used to be built, which is you just build a great product and then people will love it. And we were lucky on the product market fit and the timing, but what has really been the most exciting part of the whole journey is the team that has been built. And my happiest moments are when we're having a happy hour. We have a nice hotel lobby-esque feel in our office and our common areas, with a great bar. Of course, you need a bar at every hotel lobby. And when there's a happy hour going on, which is pretty much every night, and stepping back from that and just seeing people are doing their best work. They're making connections. They're ambitious, even when they're at the bar, they're going back to work afterwards, I swear. And that providing a place for people to do their best work, gives me more pleasure than I ever expected. It's not what I set out to do, but it's very, very fulfilling.
So, you guys have had tremendous success up to this point. What are some of the major, or what was a major inflection point where the virality sort of took off for you guys?
When we launched, it was actually part of Dealbase, the second company, and we gave ourselves, it was like $200,000 of Dealbase money and 3 months to figure out if we could build something.
Okay.
We set some goals, said we're going to launch a product. We're going to get great hotels to sign up and give us deals. We're going to get promoted by Apple, all of these things. And in our first month, which was January 2011, we were going to get 100 room nights or bookings. You could only book one at a time, so it was 100 bookings, 3 a day. Thought that was like a little maybe a little conservative, but very achievable. We'd feel good about that. We did everything except for the metrics. We got a lot of traffic, a lot of downloads, way more than we expected. But we only did 50-some bookings, 52 bookings, and at least 2/3 of those were ourselves, or like our friends. So we said, "You got to do this," and they're like, "Really?" And they're, "Yeah." So what was very frustrating was that we had product market fit really out of the gate in terms of people were excited about it. They loved the deals. They loved the interface. They loved the curation. They loved the mobile-only nature. They loved that we replaced the state of the art at the time was, the big bank of phones at the airport.
Sure.
That was like what we replaced. It was like, wait a second, now in like 10 seconds, I can get into a hotel on demand. This is amazing. So we had a really good product market fit, but we didn't have a business. So I call it like the artwork problem. Like what we had was a piece of art, and art doesn't generate revenues to pay back investors. And it took, what happened was we launched in the worst possible month for Hotel Tonight. So it's a seasonal business, and January is the bottom of the seasonality.
Sure.
And it builds back from there. We did have good deals because of that, though. And then it took a period of time for people, when they knew about the product, to be in a use case where they needed it. It wasn't like an impulse purchase. Like if I give you, a free hotel room in New York tonight, well, it's cold, but you still wouldn't probably need it unless you're there. But if I give you a great deal on a New York hotel and you're in the moment where you're going to need it, you're absolutely going to take it. And that was the case. It was a delay. It took until like mid-April, and then one weekend on a Saturday, we did 20 room nights. And I was like, what's happening? Is there something wrong? And my co-founder texted and said, there's a new player in town. And I was like, I guess this is going to work. So
That's really cool. We used to get a report at the end of the day about however many reservations would run through it. And at that time, we were still getting live emails or text messages, hey, reservation. Obviously, we don't do that anymore. I'm sure you don't do that anymore. Blow up your phone. That's pretty funny. Let's talk about the spontaneity. Obviously, that was a huge part of the thesis, right? That either I need a room because of an event or the just act of let's get away. And how has that evolved over time inside hotel? There's obviously a lot of brands here, hotel groups, and I'd love for you to dig in a little bit of why you're different from all the other OTAs out there.
When we launched the business, we had an idea that if we could make it very convenient and simple as to book a last-minute room, as well as provide great value, so the right price at the right property, that we could change customer behavior. That's what we aspired to do. And when we pitched it, it was very hard to raise money for this because VCs don't book last minute. Like one guy I remember got like visibly pale. He's like, "You mean you want me to book a hotel room after I've arrived in a city?" And I was like, "You don't have to do this, but a lot of people already do this." And then I think we can make people more spontaneous. And and other people said, hey, this is going to be great if there's a flight delay or an emergency. But it's really hard to build a customer brand that people love to love when you're telling them about the worst possible day of their year, which is when their flight gets canceled or there's an emergency. We're also there for that. We're definitely there for that. But that's not what we built the brand around. So we built the brand around primary demand generation. And when you wake up and you don't know what you're going to do, you see, hey, there's a great deal in Napa, let's go up there. Or you're in Napa and you want to do that next flight of wine, and then you say, well, we don't want to drive home, but wait, we can stay over and stay at a great place. So that was the original way that we kept our fingers crossed. We had no idea if that was possible, and it turned out that there was a latent demand for that, and that it turned out shelter and roof overhead is a basic human need, and we provided a new way to do it. And that was one of the great things that our hotel partners loved, is that we were bringing them incremental demand. We weren't competing with them, and we still aren't directly on. If I say, like, I want to book at the Hollywood Roosevelt, like, okay, like, go to HollywoodRoosevelt.com. What we show you are a great selection of curated offers, and every day those there are going to be different offers based on who's providing the most value, and then more and more based on what we know about the customer.
So talk a little bit. I mean, let's dig in a little bit on the mobile technology. You guys have some incredible technology behind the scenes for geo proximity, for event cancellation. So, for example, if I'm at a baseball game and rain delay, I've drinking a little bit. You already know that there's a rain delay. I'm at the event because you have geo proximity to the application, and then you can actually feed me a curated offer. How have brands sort of taken that into consideration as they're marketing to consumers as part of their sort of greater channel mix?
On Hotel Tonight, or
yeah, using you as a partner.
Yeah, the most successful partners and hotels on Hotel Tonight leverage our features to meet their own marketing needs. So for the geo proximity, for example, if a hotel says, a San Francisco hotel says, hey, I don't get any bookings from people in Los Angeles, they can provide a discount overlay for the Los Angeles basin, and that will generate so say it's a 10% discount. That's every 90 cents that is generated from that booking is incremental. And it would have been zero otherwise, because getting in front of customers with the right deal and the right offer. And we provide a number of different levers for that. It could be the type of customer and their propensity for a various type of property. It could be a closed user group type rate, which we call HT Perks, which is part of a program that we have that's been very successful for hotel partners. And so that we work with our hotels, and our market managers will sit down and say, what are your needs in terms of generating incremental production? And then we say, here are the technologies that we can bring to bear to make sure that we're delivering the right value to you.
And so how many countries are you guys in now?
We're in 40 countries. We've got offices in 5 countries, 6 offices. So New York, San Francisco. I was just in Mexico City, where we opened an office for Latin American expansion. And then Paris, Berlin, and London.
Very exciting. And plans for Asia, I'm assuming?
Yep, stay tuned for later in this year.
And so originally, last minute, it then expanded to being able to do 3 nights. Mm-hmm. It then has 100 nights. You've expanded to desktop. Talk about that evolution.
Yeah, the expansion of Hotel Tonight was something that I always imagined. Once we nailed the initial use case, and that's got us into the market, that was going to be an entry point to be able to be more effective for our customers and for our hotel partners. And a lot of this expansion came from our hotel partners. I was here 2 years ago. Actually, at this hotel, we have an executive offsite we call our road trip. So we go to a different city every 6 months, and we were just in New Orleans, and we were but here, and we had a number of our partners at a round table, and they said, we love the type of guests you're bringing. We love how easy you are to work with. We think that you're diversifying our supply, or our distribution. Yep. Away from the somebody called them the evil twins, but between the other 2 large players. And diversification was a priority for them. And so what we heard, though, is that they wanted to be booking further ahead, so that they could, allowing our customers to book further ahead so that they could get higher ADR, longer length of stay, and also build a base of bookings. And then second is that they wanted to be on all screens. And that also led to higher ADR, longer length of stay, and a really different type of use case. And we thought about it a lot and said, hey, we can extend what we do, because the Tonight part of what we do, the on-demand, is just one piece of it. Yeah. And that's one dimension, and we'll continue to do that, and I feel we do it better than anyone else. But we can also apply our curation, our technology, our targeting, our fenced offers to any platform and ultimately any booking date.
So part of the big theme, or at least a lot of talk, was about voice. Do you see you guys venturing into voice? In terms of the travel industry, I'm a pretty big naysayer on voice, and at least in the booking. So I'm not going to talk about the room experience. That's Sure. Somebody else is a lot smarter than I am on that one. But in terms of booking a hotel room, first of all, our industry is wonderful because it is about helping people have the best times of their year. And that is about having a really incredible experience and a sensory
experience, and that sensory experience is best captured by the eyes. That's 90% of our senses. And so if you're doing a booking via voice, you're getting rid of all the photography that tells the story about a property. And so you're ultimately like booking a commodity. I think it's fine for like, hey, I mean, we have a lot of Alexas in our house, and they're used for turning on music and setting timers. Full stop. And I don't even use it to order commodities like milk or Uber or whatnot. There's a visual element that's still needed there. But I think as an augment for instead of typing, I use the voice recognition a lot to do memos instead of banging out.
Productivity, things like that.
So it's productivity. I could imagine on Hotel Tonight, you're on the like you've chosen a hotel and it says, "Hey, yeah, Hotel Tonight, book that." Great. Like it's only 2 taps to book it otherwise, but sometimes that's easier than actually figuring out where to tap. So I could see that. But in terms of voice, like where you're like, "Hey, Hotel Tonight, book me the best hotel for me tonight." I think that I don't see that happening, not anytime soon.
So one of the themes also, I mean, Cammie mentioned this from Airbnb. She talked about experiences. Mm-hmm. You talked about, voice commoditizing a room. There's really 2 reasons why you might use a room: to sleep and to, various other things. And the whole concept of commoditizing and taking away from the experiences. I know apartment complexes are getting smaller and the actual living areas are condensing, and then the communal areas are increasing because it's the whole interaction that the millennials are looking for. How do you see our experience-driven travel changing, and where's Hotel Tonight fit into that?
Yeah, I view the overall landscape as, and I've viewed it for a while, is that on one end you've got a mass market chain hotel that has the exact same floor plan and 300 different versions or 300 different buildings. And you wake up and you don't, if it's dark outside, you have no idea which city you're in. And you have to maybe look on your phone to figure out which city you're in on Google Maps. On the other hand, you've got a home share, where you're staying in somebody's cool apartment and they're growing all sorts of plants in their apartment, and it's very immersive, very unique, and but on the other hand, on this side you've got a lot of consistency, which is great. Yep. But it's boring. On this side, you've got a lot of excitement and authenticity, and it's really deeply immersive, but it's really inconsistent.
Sure.
So in the middle are where we focus, which is boutique hotels. And it was actually the Ace Hotel and I went there a couple years before thinking about Hotel Tonight, that was really the inspiration for it. And there were people working in the lobby, and people were coming in for the free Wi-Fi. This was before free Wi-Fi was like the ubiquitous thing it is now. And I said, this is the future. And I think that has actually played out pretty well. And I think that more and more hotels are adopting that sort of Ace style, where the rooms are almost an afterthought because you're going there just to crash. And then downstairs is really where the social interaction is. And people are traveling to have interactions, not to be isolated even further. And that is a trend that we're looking to see how we can help with. But mostly we just really lean into those properties that are offering that, and that's what our customers are looking for, and that's what really converts well on Hotel Tonight.
So we have a shared customer. Well, you made a small investment in Collective Retreats. Collective Retreats is a great customer of ours. For those who don't know, Collective Retreats is probably the largest glamping group in the U.S. How does that type of inventory or available, that supply, where does that fit in? Do you have people looking for that type of inventory inside Hotel Tonight? Are you getting that sort of alternative accommodation?
Yeah, we worked on the launch of their Governor's Island project, because we do very well in New York, and it did incredibly well for us. And so this Collective Retreats does, Peter calls it, the CEO calls it experiential travel, and they have a lot of different formats to that. I think the sort of high-end premium tents that they had on Governor's Island across from the Battery down in New York, or in downtown New York, was one element of that. He's got something coming, which is like a modular luxury home unit that or a room unit that sounds really cool. He was just telling me about it yesterday, and I want to hear more about it. But so in terms of where that fits in, nobody shows up on Hotel Tonight and says, I want to go glamping, right?
Sure.
What they say is, I want something really cool. I want great value, but I also don't want to stay in a place that looks the same no matter where it is.
Sure.
And that's when they see like a glamping experience or it could be the Solage in Napa. I'm using Napa a lot. It could be the freehand down here. When they see something that is unusual and unique, that's what they're looking for. And then they're gonna pick up their phone and they're gonna Insta the heck out of it. So
Yeah, the Freehand Miami was the first property I'd ever really felt like local, and the property sort of joined. And then obviously when Citizen M launched and their whole recreation of the lobby experience, it was a great step in the direction that for me I connect with, and when I look for a hotel stay. But you know,
it's an interesting litmus test. It's like, all right, where do locals on one end, where do locals like seek out and want to go? Where's there the velvet rope just to get in the lobby during the middle of the day? On the other hand, where would you be embarrassed to be in the lobby, right?
Yeah.
And then in the middle is like, where would you tolerate? But I think that it's going to be a tough sledding for the category over here.
I was definitely not cool enough to be at Freehand Miami, but that's a different story. So, you know, you talked about the evil twins, right? The theme of this conference is connected like we've never been connected before. They sort of connect a lot of parties out there. Who's your competition, or who keeps you up at night?
Yeah, it's ultimately a lot of people are competing with a lot of people, and somebody's going to book a place on one platform and not another. But where we are focused and taking share from, which is the best way of talking about competition, is from the duopoly and the legacy desktop OTAs. Desktop first OTAs. And first. We think that there's something, we're very customer focused, and we've got two sets of customers. We've got hotel partners and we've got bookers and people staying in hotels and properties. And we think that the world can be better for both of them, and that's that keeps us up. What keeps me up at night is, are we doing that as well as we can? Are we executing well? You know, are we moving fast enough? I like to move very, very fast, and I give out an award every week called the Build Fast Award. Build is one of our cultural values, and
that's cool.
And it's about who got it out of the analysis paralysis trap and just did something to learn. Because we were finding that the analysis that we were doing was taking more time than if we had shipped it 5 times. And we would have gotten 5 different at-bats, and we probably would have gotten maybe even 3 in. We would have discovered that was the right thing to do, or that it wasn't possible, and we would have stopped doing it instead of just continuing to think about it.
Yeah, trial, test, fail, trial, test,
I'm also
fail.
kind of impatient, so that probably manifests in it.
You know, so looking at predictions, right? It's 2019 now. There's some big themes in the horizon. A lot of different things are being sort of thrown around. We talk about weaponizing travel to some extent inside our company, as you know, the Huawei arrest of their CFO, and you know, extradition to the U.S., and Chinese saying don't travel to Canada or the U.S. And then obviously when you look at the largest population of future travelers, it's coming from Asia. How does millennial travelers or the sort of foreign individual traveler affect you in some of your strategies that you're looking to address in the future?
Yeah, in terms of the Chinese outbound millennial traveler, it's very interesting. We don't participate right now in Asia, but what I do know is that type of that group of travelers, they book only on mobile, and they book primarily last minute, even for international travel. And so I feel like we're very well positioned there when that happens, just by virtue of our inventory and our connectivity with hotel partners for that last minute inventory. So that'll be really fascinating. I think that if you talk about millennials more generally, which is, I think that there's no concept of borders. There's no concept of I'm not going here to, out of retaliation or something. It's like they want to go where they're not told to go. And so oh yeah, Cuba's off limits. Great, let's go.
To Cuba. Yeah. Talk about demographics a little bit. So without giving too much, obviously there's rumors around. We won't discuss some of those rumors that are floating, but without giving anything up, talk about sort of the demographics of who your customer is. Is it more millennials? Is it sort of a wide variety? How is it sort of leaning these days? as you've sort of evolved?
It's definitely, I mean, I don't like the millennial bucket, there was a nice tight definition of it, but it's more of an attitude. And we are definitely a millennial-focused brand, but I think it's more on the attitudes and the way of viewing the world, where it's, I want to live my life and have rich experiences. I fall out of the millennial bracket. I'll let you decide which side of it. But I still like a lot of the attributes of that. I love, like when people ask what's your favorite hotel, like my answer is like the one that I haven't been to yet. I've got this list, and I love those new experiences. And so that's who we go after, are people that are seeking that out. And naturally curious, and so that's in terms of the demographics. So it falls within that. It might skew a little older, just because when people are in their early 20s, they don't have a lot of money to travel and stay in hotels, and then in particular, and then it skews actually a lot to business travel. Business travelers are. So it's about half business travel, and that's one of the things that our hotel partners like, is that business travelers are coming in and they're spending money on property, they're using the restaurant, they're using the other amenities.
And so how's that partnership with Concur and SAP, the whole integration with business expensing, has that been really fruitful for you guys?
I wouldn't comment on that, but I think that it's, what I view as the best way to get business travelers is you build a great product for consumers. And consumers business travelers are consumers, and they're going to self-select the best product. The thing that they don't like, it's sort of like the Cube example. Is like you say, you have to book using this path. They're going to try and find a way to get into the path that they prefer.
Yeah. So one of the questions that's come up is what technology partner have you worked with that's most impressed you over the last year or so? Even go back.
Let's see, what's the name of the data, Snowflake, which is a cloud database, has very much impressed our team. We use it for all of our analytics, and we've grown with them. We were like one of their, I don't know if they're first customers, but early with them, well before the big rounds of financing, and they've been fantastic to work with.
What's that accomplished for you guys?
We have a fairly large analytics team. It's we're a smaller company, 300 people, and so it's about 15 people that are working on analytics. And what we, even though I said it's not about analysis paralysis, it's about when we do have a question, we want to be able to answer it very quickly, so that we don't spin and we don't go down the wrong path. And second is, so it's insights about the business. And one of the things that I've done is say, all right, if we're going to ask this question, we need to say, if the answer is this, we do this and go this path. And if it's the other thing, we go this other way. And if people can't answer that, then I've told the data science and analysis team to not actually do the work. Because if it's just the other type of query that people ask is for curiosity. And that's not appropriate in a business. So it's good to know, fun facts. No, I want hard facts that are going to make decisions that are going to improve the quality of the product for the customers.
It's interesting. We've tried to strive to make decisions that are actionable as fast as possible. Jeff Bezos talks about Amazon's ability. Amazon was the big topic of Steven's presentation, but the speed to making those decisions. Over time, as you guys have invested in your own analytics, have you seen that the data is getting more and more accurate, or is it just becoming more and more sort of, where do we begin? How do we dissect this? We could skin this a million times, because that's one of the things that we're going through internally, is that we have so much data that we sit on. A lot of it's actionable, some of it's not. Some of it needs to just keep being compartmentalized. Do you ever feel like there's too much data that isn't useful anymore? Or
with big data comes big responsibility. So you have to, I think that it's up to the leaders of the organization and the culture to not let the team spin on trying to solve. Again, this is the whole thing. You could spend a month trying to answer a question that the output of that would only take a day to implement one way or the other. Sure. And so I think that, and it's a real problem for organizations that all of a sudden have this tremendous data that can answer these questions, but to do so requires a ton of work. Yeah. The other thing that we went through is we had access, we did data democratization, which was giving pretty much everybody in the organization access to a tool that let people structure their own SQL queries and do their own ad hoc queries and create subtables of data. And what that caused is a big total shit show of different definitions for the same concept. So we had like 5 different definitions of revenue floating around out there. We had certain people would pull something and make a conclusion that was wrong. Data got corrupted. And then it was like the Slack channels would blow up with like, hey, whoever's running this one query, it's taking 6 hours and it's slowing it down for everyone else. We had a lot of issues like that. So we ended up, but it sounds great. It's like, give everybody access to all the data so they can make the best decisions. A lot of unintended consequences there. I wouldn't recommend that for any organization. And I would instead give selective access based on what the real needs of the various teams are.
So one of the questions is top travel trend in 2019.
So I'm an optimist, so I don't like talking about the downturn, but I think that there is going to be a headline. I don't know when it's going to come, but it's going to be around business travel decline because of the downturn and because of technology. And we use Zoom quite a bit. We have a big distributed team. It's that's another, I put that up there with Snowflake.
Yeah,
we've tried them all,
it's the best.
unfortunately, but because Zoom is the best one, we should have gone to that one.
Yeah.
And with like the more embedded Zoom systems in companies, plus a need for CFOs to control expenses, plus in the downturn scenario, I think that business travel is going to become a lot less, or it's going to go down, or it's going to be shorter trips.
Yeah.
It's going to be more spontaneous, but overall, those budgets will be put under scrutiny. So there's a headline of virtual conferencing and the downturn are eroding United's earnings. And not to pick on them, but that type of thing.
So you guys, with the whole Wall Street Journal article about the whole Airbnb rumor, which we won't get into, but there was talks about how you guys are sort of growing at the same clip as similar to the other OTAs out there that are publicly traded, keeping up growth year over year. What's the secret?
I think the exact quote was that we're growing at multiples of their speed. So
Yeah.
I won't comment on the article much, but I will correct that one. And in terms of growth, it's what's great is that by focusing on the customer, which is an opportunity that our 2 competitors have given us because they're focused on being a public company. They're focused on increasing their spread of between Google and their hotel partners. And we never were in that arbitrage scenario and arbitrage system, so we can continue to focus on what's right for the customer and our hotel partners, and it's paying dividends. So repeat bookings are growing at even faster than our overall revenue, and we're also then innovating, and that's one of the big benefits of being based in San Francisco and Silicon Valley, and having access to the big platform partners that are right there, whether it's Google or whether it's Apple, and we can leverage that to bring the best possible experience to the customers, which is then leading to growth.
Hotel inventory, Hotel Tonight, you've obviously expanded. Vacation rentals, new supply types, is that going to be in the future?
Potentially. When we've looked at this in the past, we do work with some vacation rental companies, but they operate more like a hotel.
Sure.
So they have a front desk, and you can check in at any time. But this is it's the logistics elements of a vacation rental or a home share, which is, I want to check in. This is a one room in somebody's apartment. They're already out of town. It just doesn't work for same-day booking and arrival. A lot of the logistics need to be orchestrated ahead of time. So we haven't found that it works for on-demand, and we're not going to do it if it's only for advanced booking.
Sure.
We're going to lead with same-day and then move backwards from there.
So you have brands like Oyo raise, basically $1 billion from SoftBank. They're building, supply. They're building demand. They're they're doing it swimmingly well. How does that potential, as copycats and the Saunders and the Red Awnings begin to sort of go deeper? Do you see them coming to Hotel Tonight for a differentiation, or do you see them eventually competing against you as well? Because they're the ones driving their audience. They've got the repeat traffic. They're able to do last minute. It's a similar business model to some extent, except they're also owning the supply and fulfillment.
Well, I think that it's the same. You could say the same with all of our hotel partners. But the thing that we do and we focus on is just delivering a really unique guest that's incremental on an incremental use case, incremental platform. And our contracts are completely, at any point, a hotel can walk away. They can say, we don't want to work with you at any moment. Please don't do that. But I think that the power of what we do shows in the retention that we have and the inventory that we have, because our partners are getting value. And they are not just delivering revenue and shifting it from the direct bucket to the OTA bucket or the third-party bucket, but it's revenue that they wouldn't have otherwise received.
So you're an angel investor. You invested in Collective Retreats. What are some of the other things that you're looking at that excite you?
One of the big areas that I've been focused on for a long time is mobility. And I thought a lot about this company, and before Hotel Tonight, actually before Dealbase, I called it Teleporter. And it was it was an app for ordering a black car that would take you from one part of the city to another, bypassing the taxis. And I should have continued with that idea, apparently.
That's a popular one.
Yeah, turned out, so the story on that one, why I didn't, is that I called City Hall in San Francisco, and I was like, hey, I've got this idea, like black cars. And this was the regulator, and they said, well, you could do that, but you'd go to jail. And I had house and kids, and I'm like, you know what? It's hard enough getting to from 0 to 1 without having to fight City Hall. And so I just said, no way, I don't have the stomach for that. Again, wish I had. But anyway, I invested in a company called Cabulous, which is now Flywheel. Again, wish I had, and then after I invested in that, the next week I saw Uber, and I was like, oh, that's the one I wanted, the black car one. But I was like, oh, but I've already made my bet. Lesson learned. Again, a lot of painful lessons in that story. But the other area that's in with mobility, there's car automation and autonomous driving, which is interesting. I haven't seen anything there that's within my price range. And then, but also flight. And I think that if you look at the ability to have great mobility and transformative mobility, there's only so much you can do with the surface area of the Earth. You can either go down, like Elon's doing, or you can go up, like a lot of people are doing. And I invested in this company called Lyft, L-I-F-T, not the other one. Wish I had done that as well.
I wish you'd done that as well.
But Lyft is just getting started, and the best way to describe it is a drone, a large human-sized drone that you can ride in.
Yep.
And they're down in Austin, Texas, and they bypass all the regulations because it's a watercraft. So it floats on the water and has buoys, and so it's a seaplane. And if you're a seaplane and you stay over water, you don't have any of the regulations. So you don't even need a pilot's license or anything. So they're going to use it for but it's all it's got a parachute in it. It's got redundancy.
Anything that needs a parachute is scary.
Yeah. Well, so it's for bachelor parties initially, and that's where they're going to get the initial. Oh, not for your cup of tea, apparently. Yeah.
No, I think it's awesome.
I think there'll be some takers. Anyway, I forget the URL, but it's look up Lyft aircraft. So
Lyft aircraft.
It's pretty compelling. Anyway, it's one of those things where it's a great angel investment because it's either going to be wildly successful or it's not going to be successful. So it's high beta, and then it's somebody though. I have no doubt that within go out 20 years. That this is how we're going to be getting around for certain types of travel in personal aircraft. And what that's going to do to the travel industry is really interesting. What it's going to do to the landscape, what it's going to do to real estate. Because for areas that are point-to-point, really difficult on the surface of the Earth, but where you can just go over the mountain, and as the crow flies, are only a few miles away, all of a sudden it opens up a lot more travel opportunities, a lot more commuting opportunities, a lot more recreation activities. And you can go from Malibu to Thousand Oaks in like 2 minutes. I don't know what that means in terms of that use case, but in general, it's going to create a lot of opportunity for our industry.
So I had a similar story. I was in San Francisco and was at a house party, and this guy was pitching to a group trying to get feedback. And he's like, "What do you think about sending messages that are 140 characters long?" I was like, "Isn't that a text message?" He's like, "No, it'd be on a platform, and then you could go back and read them." I'm like, "Isn't that a text message?" He's like, "No, it needs to be on the web." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't get it." And sure enough, it turned out to be Twitter. And at the time, they were just asking a group of us, because we were all investment bankers, and they're like, "We just need 10 grand from each one of you." And I can only imagine what that 10 grand would be worth today.
Well, I'd say that Twitter wouldn't have existed if it weren't for you saying this.
That's right.
And then he was motivated. I'm going to prove that fucking banker wrong.
That asshole. That's right.
Thank you for Twitter.
There you go. It's awesome. Too funny. Any other questions from the crowd? Shout out before we kill this session and move on with the day. No, nothing. Do you have something? Second question. You've extended the time between booking, staying previously. Will you enable customers to book hotels for the day of arrival in the future?
For any day of arrival. So we expanded to 100 days. It was a nice, round number that made sense. But we want to be there for our hotel partners. We want to be there for our customers, and our customers are asking to book. There are certain use cases where booking further in advance are really important, like the Kentucky Derby, like locking in a certain long stay around New Year's Eve, the days that and locations when things get booked a year in advance, right when the inventory opens up, and I'd definitely like to be there for that.
I like the last question that just popped up. Any interest in adding private flights, net jets, or similar alternative packages?
Not with today's hardware, meaning today's aircraft. It's flying still isn't very, very fun. But if there was certainty that all right, so you show up at this address, and there's a vertical takeoff and landing vehicle that'll take you, up to Calistoga or whatever for the weekend, and you can push a button and have a weekend getaway, including transportation. Hell yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I agree. Ladies and gentlemen, Sam Shank, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Thanks, man. It was great.